10 years had passed since the fall of New Eden, and the galaxy operated under rules written in human blood. Admiral Blake now served as humanity's galactic ambassador, addressing the interspecies council from a position of absolute authority. The alien delegates who once dismissed human concerns now hung on her every word. The council chamber had been rebuilt to accommodate human preferences, with Earth's flag displayed prominently above all other symbols. Representatives from dozens of species sat in careful silence, knowing that their civilizations existed only because humanity allowed it. The peaceful farmers had become galactic emperors. Blake began her address by activating a memorial display showing the faces of every human who died at New Eden. 2 million innocent people smiled from family photographs while their names scrolled endlessly on surrounding screens. The aliens watched in uncomfortable silence as human grief was transformed into galactic law. The Galactic reservation worlds served as permanent reminders of what happened to species that threatened humanity. Former alien warriors now worked as laborers and servants under human supervision. Their children attended schools where they learned human history and values, while their own culture was systematically erased. Dr. Carter had become the director of alien education programs, ensuring that every non-human child learned about the New Eden massacre. Young Galactic students memorized the names of human victims, while older aliens maintained memorial gardens as part of their mandatory service. Memory had become a weapon. The galaxy's trade networks operated entirely under human control, with Earth's approval required for any major economic activity. Species that had once been equals now competed desperately for human favor, knowing that isolation meant economic collapse. Fear had become the foundation of galactic peace. Captain Morrison commanded the New Eden Memorial Fleet that patrolled former galactic space, ensuring that the lessons of history were never forgotten. His ships carried recordings from the massacre that were broadcast continuously to remind alien populations about the consequences of challenging humanity. General Rodriguez supervised the occupation forces that governed over 200 worlds previously controlled by other species. Human administrators made all important decisions, while alien officials served as translators and clerks. The galaxy had learned to submit to human wisdom. Blake reminded the council that humanity possessed detailed biological knowledge about every known species. Dr. Hayes' research had produced weapons capable of targeting specific alien physiologies, while leaving humans unharmed. The threat of extinction kept potential enemies obedient and cooperative. The memorial on New Eden had grown into a massive complex, visited by delegations from across the galaxy. Alien leaders were required to tour the site annually and listen to recordings of human families begging for mercy. The experience broke many proud species into submissive compliance guardians. Intelligence networks monitored every aspect of alien society, watching for signs of rebellion or anti-human sentiment. No species could plan resistance without human knowledge. While collaborators in every government reported suspicious activities, privacy had become a human privilege. The education system established on alien worlds ensured that future generations would understand human superiority. Young aliens learned that their species had once been violent and cruel until humanity brought peace and order to the galaxy. History was written by the victors. Morrison's memorial fleet included ships crewed entirely by New Eden survivors who had dedicated their lives to preventing another massacre. They carried the names of the dead into every star system as a reminder that human memory was eternal and human justice was inevitable. Blake explained to the council that humanity's patience had limits and their mercy could be withdrawn at any time. The Galactic example demonstrated that even advanced civilizations could be reduced to primitive subsistence if they chose to oppose human interests. The former Galactic homeworld served as a museum of human determination where alien visitors could see the ruins of a once mighty empire. Tour guides explained how systematic human pressure had destroyed an entire civilization through superior planning and relentless execution. Rodriguez reported that resistance movements among occupied species were minimal and easily controlled. Most aliens had accepted their subordinate status, while their children grew up knowing only human authority. The galaxy was adapting to permanent human dominance. Carter's psychological profiles identified which alien species posed potential threats and which could be trusted with limited autonomy. The classification system determined every aspect of alien life from trade privileges to reproductive permissions. Human judgment was final and absolute. The memorial ceremonies held throughout human space included required participation from alien dignitaries who had to publicly acknowledge their species' gratitude for human protection. The rituals reinforced the message that all galactic peace depended on human strength. Blake concluded her address by reading the names of New Eden's youngest victims. Children who would never grow up had become the foundation of a new galactic order, based on human supremacy and alien submission. Their sacrifice had transformed the galaxy forever. Dr. Hayes continued developing new weapon systems, ensuring that humanity maintained absolute military superiority over all potential enemies. The research that began with colic biology now covered every known species. Human science had become an instrument of permanent control. The galaxy's young aliens grew up in a world where human authority was natural and unquestionable. They learned to respect human superiority while accepting their own species' limitations. Education had become a tool for ensuring permanent submission. Morrison established training programs where alien youth learned to serve human interests while abandoning their own cultural traditions. The next generation would be more human than alien in their thinking and values. Identity itself had become subject to human control. Blake stood before the memorial wall reading names that had shaped galactic history. Lisa Thompson, age 6, Kevin Brown, age 12, Sarah Johnson, age 8. These children had died so that humanity could teach the galaxy about justice and the price of threatening innocent lives. The New Eden Memorial Foundation expanded its mission to include monitoring alien behavior throughout the galaxy. Any species that showed signs of aggression or independence faced immediate investigation by human authorities. Freedom had become conditional on human approval. Carter supervised the final phase of colic integration into human society. The few surviving aliens from the original empire would die as servants while their descendants lived as permanent wards of humanity. Proud warriors had become cautionary examples. The galaxy learned that humanity never forgot injuries and never forgave those who harmed innocent people. 10 years after New Eden, the lesson was complete. Human children played safely in rebuilt cities, while alien children tended memorial gardens planted above human graves. Justice had become eternal. The surrender ceremony took place on a human ship orbiting the ruins of Colic Prime. Dr. Carter now served as humanity's chief negotiator, presenting terms that would reshape the galaxy forever. The Colic delegation sat in restraints while human guards watched their every movement with weapons ready. Carter placed the surrender document before the alien leaders, explaining each term with cold precision. Complete disarmament of all Colic military forces, dissolution of the Empire and removal of all governmental authority, relocation of the entire Colic population to designated reservation worlds under permanent human supervision. The alien delegates listened in growing horror as Carter continued reading the terms. Every Colic involved in the New Eden massacre would be surrendered for trial and execution. The species would pay reparations to human survivors for the next 500 years. Colic children would be educated in human schools to learn proper values forecasts. Thekmore tried to negotiate lesser terms, claiming that his people had suffered enough during the siege. Carter responded by playing footage from New Eden showing Colic soldiers burning human children alive. She asked Thekmore if he thought alien suffering could ever equal what humans had endured. Blake watched the ceremony from the command deck, knowing that this moment would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The species that had once been peaceful traders were now dictating terms to a former galactic empire. Other alien races would learn from the Colic example. The surrender document included provisions that shocked even human observers. Every Colic world would be occupied by human forces indefinitely. Alien reproduction would be monitored and controlled to prevent population growth. The species would exist only at human discretion. Carter explained that humanity had spent 5 years mapping every Kalak hiding place and identifying every individual connected to their military. Human intelligence networks had infiltrated alien society so completely that no war criminal could escape justice. The galaxy learned about human patience and planning. Morrison personally arrested Thekmer in his private chambers after the surrender ceremony. The captain who had watched his home burn now placed restraints on the alien commander who had ordered the massacre. Justice moved slowly, but it arrived with absolute certainty. The Kalak attempts to hide their war criminals proved futile against human determination. Human agents emerged from positions throughout alien society, revealing that they had been gathering intelligence for years. No Kalak official who had participated in the New Eden attack could find Sanctuary. Blake addressed the galactic community, explaining humanity's new role as peacekeepers. The Terran Federation would ensure that no species ever again committed genocide against innocent civilians. Human fleets would patrol the galaxy enforcing justice wherever it was needed. Dr. Hayes implemented biological monitoring systems to track every Kalak individual throughout their remaining lives. The aliens would never again be able to organize military forces or threaten other species. Human technology would watch their every movement until the species became extinct. Carter supervised the relocation of billions of Kalak to reservation worlds where they would live under human oversight. The proud warriors who had once conquered star systems now depended on human charity for basic survival. Their children would grow up knowing only human authority. The trials of Kalak war criminals became a spectacle that horrified the galaxy. Human courts showed no mercy to aliens who had participated in genocide. Every execution was broadcast across known space as a warning to other species about the consequences of harming humans. Rodriguez commanded the occupation forces that governed former Kalak worlds. Human administrators replaced alien officials while human teachers educated Kalak children about their species' crimes. The next generation would understand that their survival depended on human forgiveness. The galactic economy shifted dramatically as humanity became the dominant power. Other species competed for human approval, knowing that Earth's displeasure could mean economic isolation or military intervention. The peaceful traders had become galactic overlords. Morrison established the New Eden Memorial Foundation, ensuring that every human victim would be remembered forever. Kalak workers maintained the memorial sites as part of their mandatory service to human society. The aliens tended gardens planted over human graves. Carter developed psychological profiles of every major alien species, identifying potential threats to human interests. The intelligence networks that had destroyed the Kalak Empire now monitored the entire galaxy for signs of anti-human sentiment. Blake received reports about other species modifying their behavior to avoid provoking human anger. The destruction of the Kalak served as an effective deterrent against any thoughts of challenging humanity. Fear had become an effective tool for maintaining galactic peace. The final group of Kalak war criminals was executed exactly 6 years after the New Eden massacre. Thekmer died knowing that his species would never recover from the consequences of his decisions. Human justice was slow but absolutely thorough. Dr. Hayes completed his biological weapons, research ensuring that humanity could wage war against any known species. The peaceful farmers who had once welcomed alien visitors now possessed the capability to exterminate entire civilizations if necessary. The galaxy adapted to new realities under human dominance. Trade routes operated under human protection while conflicts were resolved by human arbitrators. The species that had once been considered primitive now controlled the fate of advanced civilizations. Carter concluded the occupation planning by establishing permanent human bases throughout former Kalak space. The alien worlds would serve as examples of what happened to species that chose to threaten humanity. Justice had been served completely. Blake stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the stars that now acknowledged human authority. The massacre at New Eden had transformed humanity from victims into the galaxy's most feared civilization. The price of harming humans had been demonstrated for all to see. The Kalak Empire was gone and its people lived only because humans permitted their continued existence. The galaxy had learned that humanity never forgot injuries and never forgave those who harmed the innocent. Peace would be maintained through strength and fear. 5 years had passed since the first human attack, and the Kalak Empire was collapsing from within. General Ben Rodriguez now commanded the siege fleet surrounding Kalak, primed the alien homeworld where billions of the four-armed creatures lived. In growing desperation, the human blockade was absolute, with nothing entering or leaving the star system. Rodriguez watched the orbital platforms around Kalak Prime burn as human weapons systematically destroyed every piece of alien infrastructure. The space stations that had once coordinated the Empire's expansion were now twisted metal drifting in the void. No alien ship could reach the surface, and no communication could leave. The System Admiral Blake received hourly reports about conditions on Kalak Prime as the siege continued. The alien population was beginning to starve as their agricultural systems failed without imported materials. Human intelligence estimated that over 10 million Kalak had already died from hunger and disease forecast. Vekmer finally attempted to contact the human fleet directly. The alien commander who had ordered the destruction of New Eden now spoke in desperate tones about negotiation and peace. Vekmer offered territorial concessions and financial reparations in exchange for ending the blockade. Blake listened to Vekmer's message while standing in the memorial chamber aboard her flagship. The walls displayed the names and faces of every human who died on New Eden. Children smiled from family photos while their parents looked proud in colonial work clothes. 2 million innocent lives lost to alien cruelty, the human response to Vekmer's peace offer became legendary throughout the galaxy. Blake's message was broadcast on all frequencies so every species could hear humanity's position. She told the alien commander that humans had learned about mercy from watching Kalak soldiers kill children. Rodriguez coordinated the final assault on Kalak orbital defenses using tactics that maximized alien casualties while preserving human lives. The remaining Kalak fleet tried desperately to break through the siege, but human weapons cut them down before they could reach escape velocity. Captain Morrison led boarding parties onto captured Kalak vessels searching for specific targets. His teams carried lists of alien officers who had participated in the Eden massacre. The hunt for war criminals had become personal for every human soldier involved in the siege. Dr. Carter monitored Kalak communications from the surface, reporting increasing chaos in alien cities. The unified empire was fragmenting as different regions blamed each other for the disaster. Some Kalak groups tried to surrender separately while others called for continued resistance. The siege entered its 8th month with Kalak Prime's infrastructure completely destroyed. Power grids failed, leaving alien cities in darkness, while water treatment plants stopped working. The proud empire that had conquered dozens of worlds was reduced to a pre-industrial nightmare. Human psychological warfare teams broadcast recordings from New Eden continuously over Kalak communication networks. The sounds of human families dying were accompanied by messages explaining that this suffering was payment for alien crimes. No Kalak could escape hearing about their species' guilt. Blake received intelligence reports about Kalak military leaders attempting to flee the homeworld using hidden ships. Human hunter-killer teams tracked down these escape attempts and eliminated them without mercy. Every alien officer involved in the conquest campaign would face justice. Rodriguez watched through telescopes as Kalak cities went dark one by one. The aliens had lost the ability to maintain their civilization under the pressure of human siege tactics. Proud warriors who had once laughed at human weakness now begged for food and medical supplies. The other galactic species sent numerous diplomatic missions trying to negotiate an end to the siege. Representatives from the Zentari and Voss appealed to human mercy while offering to mediate peace talks. Blake rejected every proposal, stating that humanity would accept only unconditional surrender. Thacker made increasingly desperate attempts to reach some compromise with the humans. The Warcast commander offered to execute his own subordinates who had participated in the New Eden massacre. He promised to surrender himself for trial if the humans would spare the Kalak population. Carter analyzed the psychological profiles of Kalak leaders and predicted total collapse within weeks. The alien command structure was disintegrating under pressure while their population faced starvation. The empire that had seemed invincible was dying from human determination, Morrison discovered hidden bunkers where Kalak officials were hoarding food while their people starved. Human forces broadcast footage of these discoveries to the alien population, creating civil unrest that further weakened Kalak resistance. The Empire was destroying itself from within. Blake stood before her command staff explaining the final phase of the siege. Human forces would allow limited food shipments to reach Kalak Prime, but only in exchange for the surrender of specific war criminals. The aliens would have to choose between their leaders and their survival. Dr. Hayes provided chemical agents that could contaminate Kalak water supplies if the aliens refused to surrender. The weapons would cause slow, painful death while leaving human forces unaffected. Hayes reminded everyone that the Kalak had shown no concern for human suffering. The galactic community watched in growing horror as humanity demonstrated their capacity for systematic destruction. The siege of Kalak Prime showed that humans could maintain pressure indefinitely until their enemies completely surrendered. No other species had ever displayed such sustained focus. Rodriguez received the final surrender offer from the Kalak government. The aliens agreed to all human demands, including complete disarmament and the handover of every individual involved in the New Eden massacre. The empire that had once threatened galactic peace was ready to accept any terms. Blake reviewed the surrender document while surrounded by images of New Eden's victims. The children who would never grow up and the families who would never reunite deserved to see justice served. After 5 years of war, humanity was finally ready to accept Kalak's submission. The siege ended with Kalak Prime reduced to a shadow of its former glory. The homeworld of a galactic empire had been brought to its knees by human determination and superior strategy. The aliens who had once dismissed humanity as weak now faced the consequences of their arrogance. 2 years after New Eden burned, Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of the Dreadnought, Retribution watching her fleet prepare for the first major assault. The human armada stretched across space with over 300 warships ready to begin Operation Reckoning. Each ship carried weapons designed specifically to kill Kalak soldiers and destroy their technology. Captain Morrison commanded the destroyer Vengeance with a crew that included many New Eden survivors. His ship was fast and deadly, perfect for the hit-and-run tactics that would define the early phase of human revenge. Morrison had studied every Kalak base and supply route, preparing to strike where the aliens least expected resistance. The first target was a Kalak mining facility on the edge of their territory. Intelligence reports indicated that over 5,000 alien workers and soldiers operated the installation. The facility produced rare metals needed for Kalak ship construction, making it a valuable strategic target. Blake gave the attack order and human ships moved with precision that surprised even their own crews. The coordination between vessels was perfect, with each captain knowing exactly when and where to strike. The Kalak defenders never had time to send a distress signal before human weapons turned their base into debris. Morrison led his squadron against a Kalak convoy carrying supplies to their frontier worlds. The alien ships were heavily armed but designed for fighting species that followed traditional combat rules. Humans ignored those rules completely and attacked from unexpected angles, using tactics that maximized Kalak casualties. The convoy battle lasted only minutes, with every alien ship destroyed and all hands killed. Morrison broadcast recordings of the attack back to Kalak space with a simple message: every human who died on New Eden would be avenged with Kalak blood. The war had begun, and mercy was not an option. Dar Carter worked with the intelligence division to understand Kalak military psychology. She discovered that the aliens expected quick victories followed by peaceful occupation. They had never faced an enemy that pursued them relentlessly across multiple star systems. The concept of total war was foreign to their thinking. Human soldiers began carrying audio recordings from New Eden during their missions. The sounds of human children screaming and families begging for mercy were broadcast during attacks on Kalak positions. Carter designed this psychological warfare to break alien morale and spread fear throughout their empire. The Shalak military leadership initially dismissed human attacks as minor raids that would eventually stop. Commander Vector assured his superiors that the humans would tire of fighting and seek negotiations. The aliens could not comprehend the depth of human anger or their capacity for sustained violence. Blake coordinated attacks across 12 star systems, simultaneously striking at Kalak infrastructure and military targets. Human intelligence networks had mapped every important Kalak installation during the 2 years of preparation. The aliens discovered that humans had been watching them far longer than anyone realized. Ben Rodriguez had designed new torpedo systems that could penetrate Kalak armor and cause maximum internal damage. The weapons were programmed to seek out alien life signs and detonate in ways that guaranteed no survivors. Rodriguez felt no guilt about creating devices meant purely for killing the Kalak. Empire tried to respond to human attacks but found their enemies impossible to pin down. Human ships appeared without warning, struck their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens began losing installations faster than they could defend. The Morrison's crew developed a reputation for ruthless efficiency. In combat, they would disable Kalak ships, instead of destroying them, then board the vessels to capture alien technology and interrogate prisoners. The information gathered during these raids helped plan future attacks. Carter interrogated captured Kalak soldiers using techniques specifically designed to break their psychology. She learned about alien military protocols, command structures, and planned operations. The prisoners were kept in conditions that slowly drove them insane before they provided useful intelligence. The war entered its second year with Kalak forces retreating from their outer territories. Human fleets pursued them relentlessly, giving the aliens no time to rest or reorganize their defenses. Every withdrawal was turned into a massacre as human weapons cut down fleeing Kalak troops. Blake received reports that other galactic species were becoming concerned about human military capabilities. The systematic destruction of Kalak forces demonstrated a level of tactical sophistication that surprised even humanity's former allies. Earth had become the dominant military power in the galaxy. The Kalak tried to negotiate temporary ceasefires to recover their wounded and regroup their scattered forces. Blake rejected every request, with recordings from New Eden showing alien soldiers killing human civilians. The message was clear that humans would accept nothing less than total victory. Thekmer finally began to understand the mistake his species had made. The Warcast commander watched intelligence reports showing human forces advancing deeper into Kalak space. His people were dying by the thousands, while humans showed no signs of slowing their assault. Carter developed new interrogation methods that could break even the strongest Kalak minds. She combined physical discomfort with psychological pressure to extract information about alien defensive plans. The techniques were effective but disturbed even experienced human soldiers. Morrison led the assault on a major Kalak fortress world, where over 50,000 alien troops had gathered for a final stand. The battle lasted 3 days, with human forces methodically eliminating every defender. No prisoners were taken and no Kalak escaped the planet alive. The fortress world victory marked the beginning of the end for Kalak resistance. Their military structure collapsed as human attacks prevented any coordinated defense. Individual Kalak units fought desperately but could not stop the advancing human fleets. Blake stood before her officers explaining the next phase of operations. Human forces would now target Kalak civilian infrastructure to break their will to fight. The Admiral reminded everyone that the aliens had shown no mercy to human civilians on New Eden. Dr. Hayes provided biological weapons designed to target Kalak physiology specifically. The weapons would cause painful death in aliens while remaining harmless to other species. Hayes justified the development by pointing to videos of Kalak soldiers laughing while they burned human children. Galaxy watched in growing fear as humanity demonstrated capabilities that no other species possessed. The methodical destruction of an entire alien empire showed that humans could wage war on a scale that threatened galactic stability. Other species began wondering if they might be next. 6 months had passed since the burning of New Eden, and Earth had become a different world. Admiral Susan Blake stood before the Galactic Council chambers holding a datapad that contained the testimony of every survivor. The alien representatives from dozens of species watched her with curious eyes as she prepared to speak about humanity's demands for justice. The council chamber was massive, with delegates floating in specialized atmosphere bubbles suited to their biology. The Zentari breathed methane, while the Voss required high-pressure environments. Blake had attended these meetings before, when humanity was just another peaceful trading partner. Today she represented a species that had witnessed genocide. Blake activated the holographic display showing the recorded footage from New Eden. The images were horrific beyond description. Kalak soldiers executing human children while laughing. Families burned alive in their homes. The systematic destruction of an entire civilization in a single day. Many alien delegates turned away from the display, unable to watch the brutality. The Kalak representative diplomat Cast Morthic sat unmoved by the footage. The four-armed alien simply stated that New Eden had refused to submit to proper authority and faced the consequences of resistance. Morthic claimed that the Kalak Empire had every right to expand their territory and remove obstacles to their growth. Blake listened to this response with growing anger burning in her chest. She thought about Jake Morrison, who now spent his days writing down the name of every person who died on New Eden. She remembered Lisa Carter, who woke up screaming every night from nightmares about alien laughter. The survivors carried wounds that would never heal. Council debate continued for hours, with various species offering meaningless condolences and empty promises of investigation. The Thrick suggested economic sanctions, while the Delaney proposed a strongly worded statement of disapproval. Blake realized that these aliens viewed the massacre as just another political problem to be managed with careful diplomacy. When Blake finally spoke, her words cut through the chamber like a knife. She announced that humanity was withdrawing from all galactic treaties and trade agreements, effective immediately. The Terran Federation would handle the Kalak problem using their own methods. Justice would be served with or without galactic approval. The alien delegates erupted in concerned chatter. Many species depended on human trade and technology. Earth had become a major supplier of agricultural products and manufactured goods to dozens of worlds. The sudden withdrawal of human cooperation would cause economic chaos across multiple star systems. Blake ignored their protests and delivered humanity's final message to the galaxy. Every human world was now under military protection. Any species that aided the Kalak Empire would be considered an enemy of humanity. Trade with human space would resume only after the Kalak threat was completely eliminated. Back on Earth, Dr. Richard Hayes worked in his laboratory studying tissue samples recovered from the New Eden attack site. He had dissected Kalak corpses to understand their biology and find weaknesses that could be exploited. Hayes discovered that the aliens had redundant organ systems, which made them hard to kill but also revealed specific vulnerabilities. Colonel Amy Peterson supervised the transformation of human industry from peaceful production to total war manufacturing. Every shipyard that once built cargo vessels now constructed warships. Factories that made farming equipment were retooled to produce weapons and armor. The human economy shifted completely toward military goals. Recruitment centers opened on every human world, with volunteers lining up for blocks. Young people who had never seen combat trained alongside veterans from the colonial security forces. Jake Morrison became a training instructor, teaching new soldiers about Kalak tactics and the importance of showing no mercy to alien invaders. Lisa Carter joined the Military Intelligence Division, where she studied Kalak psychology and culture. She learned their language and customs while developing strategies to break their morale. Carter discovered that the Kalak viewed other species as naturally inferior and believed their own superiority was absolute. The galaxy watched with growing concern as humanity mobilized for war. Other species had seen conflicts before, but nothing like the systematic preparation that humans displayed. Every decision was calculated and every resource was directed toward military objectives. The peaceful traders were becoming something far more dangerous. Ben Rodriguez designed new ship configurations that maximized firepower while minimizing construction time. Human engineering principles were applied to creating the most efficient killing machines possible. Rodriguez worked 18-hour days, knowing that every ship he designed might save human lives in the coming war shipyards around Earth, and the other human worlds operated around the clock. The sound of construction never stopped as humanity built. The largest fleet in their history. Workers volunteered for extra shifts, knowing that their efforts would help avenge the innocents who died on New Eden. The Galactic Empire initially dismissed human preparations as the desperate actions of a weak species. Vecmar sent messages to other Galactic commanders joking about human attempts at military organization. The aliens had conquered dozens of worlds and never faced serious resistance from any species. Intelligence reports began reaching human command about Galactic military movements. The aliens were consolidating their forces, expecting an easy victory over human space. They had no concept of the fury they had unleashed or the determination that drove every human decision. Susan Blake received daily reports about military production and training progress. The numbers were staggering even by human standards. In 6 months, humanity had tripled their military capacity and showed no signs of slowing down. Every human world contributed resources and personnel to the war effort. The final piece of preparation involved psychological conditioning for human soldiers. They watched footage from New Eden daily to maintain their anger and focus. Veterans who survived the massacre spoke to new recruits about what they had witnessed. The message was clear that mercy was not an option. Blake concluded her preparations by recording a message that would be broadcast across human space. She spoke directly to every human citizen, explaining that their species faced extinction if they failed to respond to the Galactic threat. The only acceptable outcome was complete victory. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity possessed capabilities they had never displayed during peacetime. The species that had once focused on trade and farming was about to demonstrate their true potential for organized violence and systematic revenge. The morning sun rose over New Eden like every other day for the past 20 years. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the main colony square, watching children play near the fountain while their parents prepared for another day of farming. The smell of fresh bread came from the bakery where Mary Thompson was already working. Jake smiled and waved at the kids who called out his name. Life on New Eden was peaceful and simple. Dr. Lisa Carter was checking on patients in the medical center when her communication device buzzed. The message made her blood run cold. Unknown ships were approaching the system, and they were not responding to standard greetings. She immediately contacted Jake, who was already running toward the defense command. Center Jake reached the command center and saw his team staring at their screens with worried faces. Lieutenant Paul Davis turned to him with fear in his eyes. The ships were massive, and there were dozens of them. They looked nothing like any human design or any of the friendly alien races they knew. The ships were dark and angular with strange markings that seemed to glow. The communication system crackled to life with an alien voice speaking in broken human language. The voice was harsh and cold. It demanded immediate surrender of all human settlements and complete submission to the Galactic Empire. Jake had never heard of the Galactic before, but the tone of the message was clear. These aliens were not here to make friends. Jake tried to respond calmly, asking for peaceful negotiations. He explained that New Eden was a farming colony with no military value. The alien response was swift and terrible. Energy beams struck the outer settlements, destroying homes and farms in seconds. Screams filled the communication channels as families tried to flee the burning buildings. The defense platforms around New Eden were small and designed only to stop asteroids or space debris. They were useless against the alien warships. Jake watched helplessly as his defensive systems were destroyed one by one. The aliens moved with deadly efficiency, showing no interest in capturing anything intact. Lisa ran through the hospital corridors, helping to evacuate patients. She could see the alien ships through the windows as they descended toward the surface. The ships were huge and covered in weapon ports that glowed with menacing light. Strange creatures emerged from landing craft that touched down in the colony center. The aliens were taller than humans, with 4 arms and scales covering their bodies. They carried weapons that fired beams of pure energy. They moved through the streets, killing anyone they found without hesitation. Lisa watched in horror as they gunned down old people trying to hide in their homes. Children running for their parents were shot down without mercy. Jake organized what little resistance he could manage. His security force had basic weapons designed for keeping peace among colonists, not fighting alien invaders. They tried to set up defensive positions, but the alien weapons cut through their cover like paper. Jake saw his friends and colleagues die around him as they tried desperately to buy time for civilians to escape. Ben Rodriguez was working in the engineering section when the attack began. He managed to get the emergency evacuation system working and started directing civilians toward the hidden launch bays. The escape pods and small transport ships were never meant to carry the entire population, but they were the only chance for survival. The aliens seemed to enjoy the killing. Lisa saw them laughing as they hunted down families. They would corner groups of humans and then take their time deciding who to kill first. Some aliens used their weapons to wound people instead of killing them quickly just to hear them scream. The cruelty was beyond anything humans had ever imagined. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. He ordered all remaining security forces to abandon their positions and help with the evacuation. There was no point in fighting anymore. The aliens were too strong and too many. The only goal now was to save as many people as possible. Lisa reached one of the evacuation sites carrying a wounded child. She could hear the alien weapons getting closer as they systematically destroyed every building in the colony. Ben was loading people into the last transport ship when Jake arrived with a small group of survivors. They were among the lucky few who would escape with their lives. The alien commander appeared on all screens throughout the colony. The creature was larger than the others, with more elaborate markings on its scales. It spoke in perfect human language now, which made its words even more terrifying. The creature identified itself as Warcast Thekfmer and declared that this attack was a lesson to all humans about resisting the Kalek. Empire Thekmer explained that the Kalek took what they wanted and killed anyone who opposed them. Human weakness disgusted them, and human resistance would be met with total destruction. The message was being recorded and would be sent to other human worlds as a warning. The Kalek wanted humans to know that mercy was not in their nature. Jake's transport ship lifted off just as the aliens began their final assault on the remaining buildings. Through the viewport, he could see the colony burning below. 2 million people had lived on New Eden that morning. Less than 1,000 would escape to tell the story of what happened as they flew away from their burning home. Lisa held the wounded child and made a promise. She whispered that humans would remember every face that died today. They would remember every name and every story. She looked back at the smoke rising from New Eden and swore that the Kalek would learn what human memory truly meant.